wine below.
All right, guys, will you stand for the bracha? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher notan Torah. Blessed are you, Lord God, King of the universe, who gives the Torah of truth and the good news of salvation to his people Israel, and to all the peoples through his son Yeshua the Messiah, Lord. Amen. All right. So last week we started to go into the book of Kohelet. What does Kohelet mean again?
Teacher, preacher, or teacher.
Right. Kohelet is someone who is preaching to a kahal. A kahal is an assembly, right? It's where we get the term Ecclesia from, which is seemingly New Testament term. So when they talk about the Ecclesia, right, as church, don't think that it's a New Testament concept. It's already here. You with me? Anything that is an assembly, when we talk about it from the Greek perspective, is an ecclesia. Anything that is a group of guys come together is a kahal in Hebrew. You with me? All right, so it's a random side note, but some people think the church was born in the New Testament. It has always been an assembly of God's people. And that theme carries on all the way from whoever belonged to God and those who didn't. And you can follow that lineage through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob the whole way through. You guys know what I'm talking about? So if Abraham belonged to God, his counterpart was Lot, right? Lot seemingly chose something different. When Isaac came along, we had Isaac and Ishmael, right? So then we have that which belongs and that which doesn't. We have Jacob and Esau. You see it? We have the Israelites and everybody else. Moabites, Ammonites, Amorites, Amalekites, you name it. That which is God's and everything else. Okay? And we started to decide or discuss when we think the book was more or less written. We're unsure, but what we do know is that Shlomo is most likely the writer of it, and that could have been a time where he was seeing things perfectly clear, or going through a bit of a dip in his theology. Right? You should take solace in the fact that even Solomon had dips. Even Solomon, the greatest man or the wisest man on earth, still had moments where his relationship with God was a little bit not correct. Right? David had the same, Moses had the same, Abraham and him had the same. So there are some times when you're going to be up, standing on the mountaintop, and sometimes you're going to be sitting in the valley. Most of the time, we're sitting in the valley because of our own doing. Okay? Messiah, who we mimic after, he didn't seem to have those dips. He had moments when, like praying in the Garden of Gethsemane, where he was focusing on saying, if there's any other way, what you're asking me is pretty tough. But he was still very focused on who he was and the work that he needed to do. It's not about me, it's about God. All right? So we started to break apart, not in the normal way of things, and we started to ask the questions. What is the point of it all? What is the point of life? And we went through the first section. We came to a conclusion that labor is pointless. And our answer to that when we put God back into the scope was, if I see my labors as God's gift, I can enjoy the fruit thereof. So it's not that you're just repeating the same cycle. You add God to it, you realize that it's an actual blessing. You guys with me? Put it as simple as going to work. You go to work, sometimes you get frustrated because you have work and you're going, do I really have to deal with this? And then you look at people who don't have work. And then you realize how fortunate you are. He says, this is true, it's a gift. The second one we got to was in chapter 4, verses 1 to 16, and he really struggled with oppression. Right? He didn't like the fact that there were people that were getting oppressed. He said, what was your answer? What did you guys put in your notes? What did I put in mine?
Oppression will not be a problem if we shine, fear, and the reverence for God.
Right, so it's about hearing. It's about doing things right. So when I'm on top of the pile, I remember I answer to God. If I'm at the bottom of the pile and knowing that God's in control, I need to understand that God is in control. Okay? The next one was in chapter 5, verses 9 to 17. If I remember correctly, that's where we stopped.
If we continue there. So 1 to where we stopped, I kind of just went with the flow because
Okay.
you were teaching and helping us understand. But having to go home and do this for myself, I did not understand how you can have chapter 6, verse 1 to chapter 7, verse 12, and find the answer or conclusion in another chapter. I struggled to get the conclusion of the chapter. And I don't know if it was just me, but it was just me.
Well, that's why you did homework, and we're going to find out, right? Because we didn't do that one yet.
I know, but having to do them by myself at home, even going back to...
This is the beauty of live study. All of your friends who have got copious amounts of notes are going to help Antishoni understand this very deep topic.
It's not just that chapter. I'm just generalizing it. I don't know.
We need to look to see where God is, and where God pops up, we see a little bit of a light. Okay, and that's what we're going to do. Okay, so let's go from chapter 5, verse 9 to 17, and let's see what the issue is. All right. I'm going to read from, if you're in a CJB, it's going to be verse 7, verse 8, just to kind of flow us in. Some of these might overlap, and they do, okay? It says, if you see the poor oppressed, rights violated, and justice perverted in the province, don't be surprised, for a high official has one higher watching him, and there are others above him. But the greatest advantage to the country is when the king makes himself a servant to the land. Right, so what is he saying? God is overlooking. Don't focus too much on that servant. And then he goes into the next thing. The lover of money never has enough money. The lover of luxury never has enough income. Is this a problem? Yes, how do we know? Because he follows with the line, verse 2 is pointless. Okay?
Just to back up a bit, I know that God is ultimately above everybody, but then if we're reading verse 7 or in other versions, verse 8, where it says he has one higher watching him.
Yes.
But then he says others higher watching them.
Yes.
Showing that he's talking about corruption in government structures.
And ultimately, if we follow it slightly back, we make it about God, and God's going to deal with whatever needs to happen. Okay? So if we just take it all the way to the top, God is on top of the chain. Don't think that people are going to get away with stuff.
Question, sorry. Is it then wrong to want to be better and to achieve more and to get to the top? Is that kind of aspirations in your life wrong?
What's the motivation?
Personally, so I like to sponsor children, and I need more money, so I need more children, so I can help more children.
Okay. What do you guys think?
That's not
Yeah, my question was ambition. What is the ambition? But what is the driving force for that ambition? And generally, I think everyone will have to admit to themselves that it's actually they want to have a life of luxury and excess, because that seems to be what's going to make you happy. That's the general But if your heart condition changes, which I'm hoping mine is, so, Rebecca, then I'm hoping that it will be, and it's a tough one because my mind is so conditioned to be one way. So, but gradually it's saying, no, kingdom.
Okay. So what is our focus? What are we looking at? What are we focusing on? And we are so busy focusing on
Making money.
money. We're focusing on how it's going to make me feel. Right. This is how it's going to make me feel.
It's gonna make you feel happy.
It's going to make you feel happy. Where's God in that state?
He's there because the kids have to listen to all the Bible statements.
Sorry, all I heard was blah, 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 blah. God wasn't in your statement.
Okay.
Okay? And as much as we can be noble with our ideas, and we can go, well, you know how many people I can help if I have more money? And I could take you guys to Israel, and we can have a wonderful time, and I can teach you, and it's going to make me feel good. And God's going to go, but what about me?
But it is about him anyway.
Let me educate you on a lesson that I had to learn. Not everybody's ready for Israel. So what am I going to do? I'm actually going to cause more damage than I'm actually going to make it about God. You see, it's about me. I feel. Me feel good. It is a childlike scenario when I am so busy focused on me. This is the sentence. I. And what happens when I change my viewpoint? We make the big smiley face and we look up and we go, what does he want?
And God forbid.
If I get that right and he says, share, then I know it's going to make me smile in good anyway, because I know I'm pleasing him first. The question is, what is your motive? We get drilled in our heads. You need goals, smart goals. And in any business study, any life skills thing, this is about who you are and what you need to achieve. I'm not against having goals, but what I'm against is making it about yourself. Messiah didn't say have smart goals. He said, seek ye first the kingdom and its righteousness, and the rest will be given to you. Is that not what he said?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Where's the kingdom in your body? Right? And everything that we do has to be surrendered unto the kingdom. So, your gym routine, is it about you, or is it about being healthy so that you can better serve the kingdom? Your money, is it about earning more because you want more, or is it about so that God can provide for you so you can better serve the kingdom? Your family, is it about you or the kingdom? Your identity, is it about you or the kingdom? You understand what's going on here? Solomon is looking at from a normal perspective. This is how I feel. This is what it does for me. He chased money. You never have enough. How many of you realize the more money you earn, the more money you spend? I've listened to people in my life saying, if I just had that amount of money, I could do some damage. And I smile sneakily and I go, I did have that amount of money and it didn't change me a thing. Back when I was an unbeliever and was saving up for my house, I had 150,000 rand sitting in my bank account and I said, I'm going to go buy me some furniture. Man. And I blew it within about 2 weeks. Man.
I can go faster than that.
I had to go shopping for those stores. And then I listened to other people saying, if I could have like 70 grand and I could spend it, I would go crazy. And I went, nah. Because ultimately, it didn't really change me. You had stuff. Or let me put it to you this way. Either you have stuff or stuff has you.
Yeah, correct.
Right? What is the motivation?
Bicycle furniture.
because it's about you. There is a point to this little dynamic, and a lot of it has to do with status, which is really buried behind something called identity. Who are you if you don't have stuff? If you don't have job title? Who are you? No. You're a child of God. That's what we should come down to. If Corona taught you anything, is when they took away your school, took away your gym routine, took away your identity, your job description, did you stop breathing? When you had to cut down a little bit because finances became tight, the job existing. So you're more than your finances. You're more than your car. You're more than your job description. You're more than your stuff. You don't stop existing when this disappears. Church doesn't stop happening if this building is no longer here. You are the Kohelet. You are the assembly. It's not the building. The building has nothing to do with it. It's practical. Money is practical. And what do? We make it about identity. And if we don't just make it about identity, we make it about God. Remember what I said? We have our little thermostat. We measure how much God loves us according to bank balance. God doesn't love me this much. I'm in a minus. And you have plenty? Or you obviously did something wrong, because mine's full. Tell me you don't do that. Tell me you don't measure your entire spiritual life about what you have and what people think about you. Let's change our bank balance barometer to people pleasing. If people like me, God loves me. If people don't, God doesn't.
Amen.
Do you understand how wrong that measuring yardstick is? How do we measure God's love? Exactly. Let's change the barometer. We just added a little piece and now all of a sudden that picture changed completely. That's how I measure His love. If people don't like me, whether they do like me, doesn't matter. God died for me. If I have lots and I have little, doesn't matter. God died for me. If I do really well, doesn't matter. God died for me. If people pat me on the back and go, you know what, let's make it about me. Friends, wow, the way you teach, brother, is amazing. And I go, leave me alone, it's not about me. It's about Him. So, what is your barometer filled with at the moment? Before we carry on, I want you to make a little side note in your diary, in your notes. I want you to think about how you're measuring God's love. And I want you to go pray about it. Backstroke. I'm talking to you. How do you measure God's love? Where are you shifting the focus? Is it about how I feel, or is it about Him? These are the questions that Solomon is asking. If everything is in balance, I should be happy. Why am I not? If I have excess, why am I not fulfilled? If I have money, if I have luxury, if that was the barometer of peace and life, why do people in Hollywood have millions of dollars in their account commit suicide? They can shop wherever they like. They have the best of anything. They have more money than most people have their entire life, and yet they are still committing suicide. Their marriages are still broken. Their children grow up in absolute luxury. They want for nothing. And you tell me about their character. Stuff has you. You've made it about you. The only thing you should take and you should cement in your heart is that I belong to God because He said so, not because I said so, not because about me. We are not good enough in any way, shape, or form. Even on your best day, you are still short of the mark of perfection. Bible's quite clear, everybody says. In fact, it goes too far as to say that anybody who says that doesn't is delusional. That's a bitter pill to swallow. But I had a good day today. I'm sure if you had to ask God what you did wrong, He'd probably give you one or two things and say, well, you know what, my boy, you did a pretty good day, but we still got work to do. After you go through Yom Kippur service, how many of you feel like you've got this thing sorted? Every day should be a recycling of how I can become better. Some days you fall, pick yourself up, tomorrow's another day to try again.
But we get stuck there and maybe not you guys, but I get stuck. I mean,
why do you get stuck?
I get stuck because my focus is good for that.
Look at the wind and the waves. Remember when Peter got out in that boat? Keep eyes on God, you walk on water. Look at everything going on around you, then you start to sink. It's a life lesson. If you have a shift in focus, it takes but a moment to reset it. This is what Ecclesiastes is going to do. The lover of money never has enough. The lover of luxury never has enough income. This too is pointless. So what would you put here as a baseline? What's the problem?
Love of money.
Okay, love of wealth. And what it can do for me. All right? Let's read a little bit further on and see what comes out of this. When the quantity of goods increases, so does the number of parasites consuming them. So the only advantage to the owner that he gets to watch them do it. The more stuff you have, the more it's going to fraud, the more it's going to break. The sleep of a working man is sweet, whether he eats little or much. But the overfullness of the rich won't let him sleep at all. So busy chasing more, do you have peace? No. Here is a gross evil which I have seen under the sun. The owner of wealth is own hurt. Due to some misfortune, the wealth turns to loss. And then, if he has fathered a son, he has nothing to leave him. Just as he came from his mother's womb, so he will go back naked as he came, and for his efforts, he will take nothing that he can carry away in his hand. Work so hard. How many years do you work to pay off a house?
20.
If you're lucky, most bonds now are 30 years. 30 years. So if you're fortunate to pay it off,
On my day.
in 20 years, you will still be 54. If you want the cheaper rate, 30 years?
I don't want a house.
Just 1 year before retirement, you can have it. If you start